Welcome back. Interjections 111 International Break Edition. We've got the whole crew back, reunited together again. It's been a hot minute. I'm your host, Andrew. Jay Irfan Amico with me. Today we're going to talk about the stadium situation. Thought with the international break it'd be a good time to reset since we haven't discussed that on the pod. Miko's going to force us to talk about some loaned players, and then we'll also preview Roma. Irfan, good morning. What's going on?
Not too much. Good morning to you, fine gents. Doing well. Excited to offer little to nothing about our players on loan, but otherwise, looking forward to chatting with you all about our favorite club. So, no complaints from me.
I'm sure you have thoughts on Aslani. We'll get to them. Jay, I know you had a rough week last week for a multitude of reasons. There was an alleged sickness. There was a draw to a draw to Juve, rather. How are you feeling?
Clearly, Juventus were beyond fortunate to walk away largely unscathed. Anyone who watched even the 2-minute, 23-second YouTube highlight video knows that Milan dominated that match and deserved to win, which is the difference between where we're at right now. One club can go to Turin and dominate and be desperately unlucky not to walk away with the win, whereas the other club goes and throws away a 2-goal advantage to walk away looking like fools. So that's that. Yes, I did have quite a rough week, physically speaking. I've had a stomach bug, and there's been a lot of just taking a lot of Aslanis all over the place, if you know what I'm saying.
I totally feel that. Miko, how are you doing?
Bit better. I got some kind of a flu or nasty bug as well, but slowly recovering. So let's go.
All right. Well, this podcast falling apart, holding itself together with bandage tape, but what we produce on for our loyal listeners. So want to start by talking about the stadium situation. So about 2 weeks ago, the news broke. The city council met in Milan. It was a Monday. It was like 3:20 in the morning or something like that, allegedly. And they voted, the Milan City Council voted to sell the Miazza and the land around it to Inter and Milan. The plan is now for us to work with Milan to build a new stadium. We'll build it in the parking lots, the empty space right next to the Miazza right now. We'll continue to play at the Miazza until that other stadium is built. And then once the new stadium is built, they'll tear down most of the Miazza and repurpose it into a publicly available stadium along with some green space. This is the most consequential step towards building a new stadium this club has had. This has been an ongoing conversation topic for the last 20 years, and they've made zero progress. There was a will they, won't they about building a stadium outside the city limits because the city council was being difficult. There were thoughts of, okay, we're going to build our own stadium without Milan. We're going to build their own stadium, and we're going to keep San Siro and renovate it. It was just a constant saga, but none of it was ever meaningful. But maybe to Oak Tree's credit, maybe to Murata's credit, I don't know who you want to give credit to. Maybe it's just the deadline of Euro 2032 coming up and UEFA telling us that the Miazza is not eligible to host matches. We got there. This is the biggest step forward we could have hoped for. And now all seems on track for a new stadium in 2031. So the two main things I want to talk about are the idea of sharing a stadium with Milan, which some fans are upset about, and just the overall thoughts of losing the Miazza. So in terms of going it with Milan, this is a no-brainer for me. This is the only thing that makes sense because of the cost. You can't build a good stadium for less than $1 billion, and we don't have that kind of money. But if you share a stadium with Milan, you still get all your match day revenue. You still get all the associated benefits when you're the one hosting events. And then it's the other stuff. Like if you have concerts there, sure, we're splitting that stuff with Milan. If we have stadium tours, yeah, we're splitting that stuff with Milan. But we get to keep our match day revenue, which is important, and we're not throwing money away in rent to the city of Milan. So I understand we'd like something of our own, but just from a practicality standpoint, you know how hard it is to build a stadium in Italy. You know how hard it is to do anything in Italy. So this is an acceptable outcome. And yeah, splitting the cost makes a lot of economic sense for both of us. The more interesting discussion is my second point, which is just about losing the Miazza, because it's a stadium unlike anything else, both physically both physically in the way it towers over you and physically in the sense of utter decay you feel walking into it. So it's just an intimidating fixture. I've never seen anything like it. I've been to a lot of stadiums in America. I've been to a lot of stadiums in Italy, and it's just a mammoth of a stadium. There's no bad seat in the place. Like every seat, you get a great view of the match, which is awesome. The problem is just it's falling apart, and it just doesn't look like what a modern stadium's supposed to look like on the inside. But there's a lot of Inter fans who get upset about the loss, like culture or heritage. Obviously, we have a lot of good memories at the stadium, and it is a really cool place to watch a match. I'm probably the wrong person to ask about this because like I said, I've been to so many games in America, and like frankly, the state of Italian stadiums is pathetic. And we have high school stadiums in America that are nicer than a lot of Serie A stadiums, if I'm being honest. I've been to most of the Serie A stadiums, and they're all awful. Like, there's not one I've been to that stands out as a positive stadium. I have not been to Juve's new stadium, but there's no infrastructure. They're all decaying. They're all falling apart. So perhaps I'm the wrong person to ask because I like new and shiny things. But I will say, for me personally, the appeal of going to Inter games, the appeal of witnessing our matches live has little to do with the actual physical stadium, and it's more to do with the fans and how much I enjoy seeing how pumped everyone is about Inter and the ultras singing their songs all match long. So people talk about they're worried about the atmosphere at a new stadium, but for me, it's not the stadium. For me, it's the fans, and as long as the fans are traveling to it, which this location will enable them to, then I don't see any issues. Irfan, I know you love the stadium. I know you've been to the stadium multiple times. So I want to get your thoughts on how you feel about eventually moving on from the Miazza and, going someplace new.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you summed it up really well. Like, I am kind of, part of me is like bummed that the stadium is not going to be there anymore, and that they weren't able to like figure out some way to either, retain some piece of it, but then build around it, or update it, or just figure out some way to renovate it but keep the kind of core of it, even for just like some nostalgic reasons, even if it wasn't really gonna have the same sort of features physically as the existing stadium. It is a very, I think, unique stadium when it comes to just like sporting events, because you're right, it does sort of like come out of nowhere and like tower over you, and there is no bad seat for sure. And the history around the different sections that were added and when they were added are very sort of interesting. And so I don't know. I'm of two minds. On the one hand, like I really appreciate the history, and I appreciate the sort of culture and just all that's happened and all that the stadium sort of encompasses, and just the sheer amount of talent and massive events that have occurred at the stadium. But on the other hand, I agree in the sense that, man, that it's such an old school sort of feeling, and when it comes to business and revenue and box seats and concessions and like things like bathrooms, it's so out of date for being like a pleasant match watching experience, that it definitely has nowhere to go but up. I think for me though, it'll depend a lot on what they end up doing look, I'm trying not to be skeptical, but I think this is a great step, and I think Oak Tree and Milan's owners are probably more motivated to like push this through than any existing sort of owners that both of these clubs have had in the past, because I think these guys are focused primarily on match day revenue and marketability of the club when they eventually sell it, knowing that there's a new stadium there that is more modern and has all of these features. So I think like we're in the right hands if the priority is to get a new stadium. What I'm still skeptical about is like how it's going to get done and what it's going to look like and where the funding is going to come from. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but like a couple of years ago, I think there was like all these like potential designs for the stadium. Like there was like some cathedral design and others. Like those looked awesome. Like, so I would get really, really kind of hyped about the possibility of like a truly grand sort of world-class stadium, in that same sort of location. But I don't know if that's actually ever going to end up being built and what the new stadium is going to look like and how quickly it can get done and all the other sort of politics and other things that are involved with getting the stadium done. But I think I'm at the point now where, at least in substance, I'm okay with a new stadium, because Milan as a city is so cool and is so fascinating, and I feel like the fact that 2 or at least 1.5 super historic clubs play there, like Inter and then the other club, I think they deserve a world-class new state-of-the-art sort of stadium. And I hope that they actually end up building that and they don't try to like cut corners and just end up with some sort of mediocre stadium, even though it's a new stadium. Because I agree that ultimately the experience comes down to the fans and how awesome it is to hear all of like the chanting and just seeing everybody so excited and on their feet like the whole time. Like it's just one of those things where I think ultimately it's going to be the fans that create the atmosphere that everyone raves about. But I do hope that they spend some time and spend some money and do build another sort of physically imposing, non-generic sort of stadium. So I'm hoping that they do that. And if they do that, then I think I'm okay. But I will miss some of the unique sort of elements of San Siro. And I'm glad that I was able to get there a few times before it is, eventually torn down. So if anyone has not gone there yet, I do think it's worth it to go and experience it before it's gone, even if you're very excited about the new stadium.
Well said. I agree with pretty much all those points. The stadium design is going to be fascinating to see, and I don't know. I just hope we don't get something generic looking. I hope we don't get your standard European oval soccer stadium, or sorry, football stadium. Miko, you've been to the stadium as much as anybody on this podcast. You fly down there once or twice a year at this rate, it feels like. So what are your emotions
Once or
knowing
twice a week.
Yeah, I mean, you don't work, so you have a lot of time. So what are your emotions as we look forward to a future without the Miazza?
Yeah. I remember it was like maybe 10 years ago, a bit less. When was the last time when there was this buzz about the new stadium? I was a bit like, okay, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this. But then I kind of started to visit it more and more, and I felt that, oh man, they can't they can't tear this one down, and kind of hope they somehow find a way to just renovate it, just kind of refurbish it somehow. But and that's why I'm partly, or I was a bit sad when this news broke out that okay, we're gonna go through with this new stadium thing. But then deep down, I've been kind of realizing it's not possible to really renovate it anymore, like make the old one new one, because what difference does it make anymore? It's just like a new or old. You can't put together the old one. It's just too old and probably would cost way much more than the just build a new one. to make it worth it. And that's why I kind of accepted the fate that, okay, this old one will be gone at some point. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed my time there visiting a few times now in the past years, and the atmosphere, it's indeed, it's out of this world when the curva is really there. I believe you were there recently, and was it that Kuru was not there, or how was they were at least not cheering as usually, right, Andrew? In the
Yeah, so I was at the Sparta Praha game, and they were not. They were in the stands, but they weren't cheering at all. And
yeah
the atmosphere in the stadium was just overall awful. The Slavia Praha ultras were like significantly louder than Inter fans for most of the game.
yeah. But as you were saying, the fans make the atmosphere, and probably it will be filled with the fans as now the new one. But I'm just thinking, can they will the atmosphere lose something when it's the new? Like, is there something missing, some kind of a spirit, or some kind of history we are losing when we don't have the original one anymore? But I guess they can do a lot of things to keep the atmosphere, like build the stands in a way that it will really emphasize the volume and everything. So I'm kind of hopeful it will be a good one. But there were good points by Irfan that the kind of the visual side of the new stadium would be nice to kind of get it right and not do any boring usual standard way of these stadiums what they build these days. But I guess we need to see. We have this designer. I tried to check. Do they have some kind of former stadium projects? But I couldn't find anything from this. What was this, Norman Foster or something like that? But I couldn't find, except the Manchester United getting possible new stadium at some point, that there were some kind of designs, but I couldn't find any other. Well, there's Wembley Stadium actually, but yeah, would be nice to see if there's some kind of a real original touch in the new one. Whenever we get it, I think they plan to get it like 2031 or 2, or maybe 1 to get it ready for the Euros.
Yeah, it has to be ready before the
32.
Euros. To your point about like would a newer stadium destroy the atmosphere? It's a fair point. I think a lot of Italians think back to when Juve, but before they moved to their current stadium, I think they built a new stadium in Torino for the 1990 World Cup, and it was a complete disaster of a stadium because it absolutely destroyed the atmosphere. There were multiple seats in the stadium where you didn't have a good line of sight on the play on the pitch. Apparently, it didn't retain noise well, and everyone hated it. And I want to say it was torn down not long after it was basically opened because it was so unpopular. So, like, there's always a chance that happens, but you'd like to think errors like that are not common anymore in the current day of architecture and money. I went to our game against Kyrie, and that's in a newer stadium. It's disingenuous to call it a new stadium because essentially what you're working with is a pitch surrounded by fold-out bleachers that they just assembled around the stadium. But even though it was new, the relic of the old stadium is right next door to it. Even though it was new, the crowd was still ferociously loud. I mean, they were making a ton of noise, and it didn't feel like you lost anything by being in somewhere that was new. So if done right, you can definitely mitigate the impacts of that. Jay, you're the only person here who has not had the pleasure of viewing a match at the Miazza, so your perspective might be different. I'm curious to hear what it is. How do you feel about having to, share a stadium with Inter?
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah,
Real ones know.
you're right. I unfortunately have not yet had the privilege of standing in the Curva Sud to watch a match. I don't really have much of a perspective on it, to be honest. I just see the, insofar as one can see without having done or experienced firsthand, I do see the value in all the varying arguments across the spectrum here. On one hand, the Sansiro is iconic, and there is this kind of romantic side of me that wants to keep it for all the history, for what it is, for the way it looks, and for all those things that I've heard about it. It's undeniable aura. It's the attachment that Inter has to the grounds where generations of legends have played, and at the same time, progress pauses for no man, because you can't operate in a venue if the thing is literally falling down, and there's structural issues with the foundations and the concrete, and maintenance is bleeding you, or would bleed you to a point where it becomes prohibitive to really spend your money on. Then that's a fool's errand as well, right? There's nothing. Imagine you're just like spending all your money to live in a mansion, but all your income goes to upkeeping this bloody old luxury manor because it's decrepit and falling into disrepair. We're not quite there yet, but by the sounds of it, we will be in the not too distant future, especially if the stadium cannot even pass the fairly modest requirements to be able to host a World Cup match. So that is a stark wake-up call for the governing bodies and the clubs, and ultimately, I guess you have to say, the way I look at it is like the attachment we have in potentially letting go of the club. Letting go of the stadium. I guess this is what everyone who has ever moved from a stadium has felt at some point, but eventually, as they say, time heals all wounds and everyone gets over it, right? I imagine the Juve fans, for example, there was a large subset of Juve fans who were reluctant to leave the Delle Alpi. There's definitely been a lot of Arsenal fans who didn't want to leave Highbury, and so on and so forth. It happens to all these clubs, but then I guess within a few years or decades, if it takes a long time, you kind of just settle into what is new, right? And I'm sure these days the Juve fans are more than happy with what is that place even called? J Stadium or something, Juventus Stadium, as the Arsenal fans are as happy with Wembley, and you get my point, right? So yeah, I think ultimately it is a sad goodbye, but one that is probably necessary, given, again, the fact that we have to live and operate in the real world, and that real world is incredibly commercial. I just hope that we don't become one of these shitty, like, Old Trafford style venues where there's like no spirit there, because they've dedicated far more seating to like corporate box seats and things like this than they do to the hardcore subset of fans. That is something that does concern me, because I mentioned it way back before the Champions League humiliation, right? Like, that shit was just off. Like, and you guys have mentioned this yourselves many times in the last handful of games, that it just feels wrong without the ultras there. And yes, again, it's a tedious argument that never seems to end. But yes, everyone knows the ultras have a bunch of unemployed racist shitbags who deal drugs and complain if incredible tickets that are already priced incredibly reasonably get raised by a mere €1. It can be easy to, I guess, to kind of blow them off, but at the same time, football is still like very much a men's game, as much as the companies want to market it towards families and to all audiences and things like this. At the end of the day, football is a men's game, and that's going to be a predominant audience. And in that, you're going to get these ultra type fans and fan bases. And to kind of sanitize that is just, I think, we're not quite there yet. We don't need to do that yet. And losing that, I think, really, it sucks the soul from your club. I really do think that. And that's why I think Germany have done a really good job of kind of doing both things successfully at the same time. They've modernized, they've sanitized, they've improved and developed from a commercial side, from an infrastructure side, from a marketing side, from a branding side, and yet everyone still knows the yellow wall of Borussia Dortmund. Everyone knows these German clubs with great week in, week out Bundesliga attendance, and they have great choreo and stuff, much overlooked, right? Everyone saw the PSG fans in the Champions League final. They've managed to do it in a way where they haven't lost the soul of their fans too much, and so I'm really cautious that we don't lose that in this part, because, like I said, I feel like a club like Man United, a club like Arsenal have been really castrated, and their fan bases have been somewhat castrated by the stadium rebuild projects that they've been through. I know that Manchester is still playing in Old Trafford, of course, but as mentioned, they've got a lot of corporate box seating. And as part of all of this, my hope is that there is a consciousness and awareness that we don't lose that kind of fandom aspect of the clubs, the same way that, like I said, Borussia Dortmund, for example, have managed to keep it really pure, really intense. So I just really hope that we retain that element of the fandom in whatever avenue we choose.
Yeah, completely agree. It's the constant struggle of the sport in the modern age where they want all your money. They'll do anything possible to get money from your pockets to the club, because they want to finance these like lavish lifestyles of spending 70 million on transfers, on all the extravagant things that go into competing in European competitions. But in reality, if you think who your core tenant football fans are, ultras, like you said, are 90% men. And it's not like these are well-off men who are out there. It's funny
exactly.
when
the Irfans of the footballing audience, are in their lofty box seats, sipping on their catered champagne, while the true, the Andrews of the world are in the stands, shirt off, beating their chests and screaming wildly. And this is what we need more of. And the Irfans and the Mikos are going to be giving more money to the club in that sense. But the guys in the Curva Nord are going to be pumping a lot more passion and a lot more energy and a lot more enthusiasm into the air during games. And that's an intangible that money can't buy, and that I think has been lost at some clubs.
Exactly. The goal for any of these clubs is how do you get as much money as possible from the Irfan types while still keeping the Andrew types in the stadium. That's the constant struggle they're working through.
I mean, this is just sheer blasphemy. I'm a man of the earth, man of the salt of the earth. Sit with all my fellow fans. I would sit with the ultras if I could, but I don't know enough of the songs, I feel like. But I will say
Irfan wouldn't feel safe.
Yeah, I know that's true as well. But I will say, look, I think that I think the worry that whatever the stadium is going to be will be too corporate, and it's going to take away from sort of the passion of Inter fans. I don't think that's going to happen because, to be honest, man, I feel like Italy and football and Milan is just like one of those sort of iconic collections that just create the sort of fervor that's going to be really hard to kind of dull down. I mean, well, let's face it, like some of these EPL teams have like artificial fans anyway, and like they might create an environment where they feel like they're very passionate, but there's a different level, I think, in some of these continental clubs than there is in England. And I'm not as concerned because I feel like the entire city just sort of revolves around football, especially when the teams are playing well and there's big matches and things like that. So I think they can keep the environment even in a new stadium. My biggest concern is like what I mentioned earlier and what you guys said, which is that I don't want just some like very deliberate, measured, efficient sort of generic stadium. Like do something unique. Like this, especially if Milan and Inter are sharing the stadium, like pay homage to the city, pay homage to the existing stadium. Do something that's a little bit more unique and not just some generic, bland kind of bullshit. Like that's my biggest concern at this point. Which I understand sounds a little spoiled, but I just want something with a little bit of character. And there's no reason why you can't build a new stadium that still has some character, as long as you're trying to prioritize that part of it.
Yeah, I agree with the point that you don't want to make a stadium that's too commercial and lose the spirit and culture of it. But the fact is, the Miata is not commercial enough, and there's missed opportunities for the clubs when you go to the stadium beforehand. You guys know what I'm talking about. You have all those vendors outside selling food that you buy from before or after the match, and that's because there's nothing inside the stadium. And it's just there are easy opportunities for this club to boost revenue in meaningful ways. So you want to do that while also not holding the fans over a barrel and feel like you're pinching pennies from them.
Yeah, I guess only risk what Jay was referring with the losing kind of the real fans and a bit what Irfan you said about the whole crowd, the most of the stadium, which are not like the hardcore ultra fans, but still kind of the fans from the local fans from the state, from the area, from the city and so on. I think the only thing they can do is they bump up the prices too much so that people simply can't afford to go there anymore. If they can keep the ticket prices like at acceptable level, I think we should be fine. But if they get too greedy, it can go bad. But I'm sure they know this even better than any of us. So I'm not too worried about that. Maybe this kind of ultra angle and the losing the Curva Nord, or what we're gonna do with them. That's maybe the bigger possible problem in the future, because we have now the problems. There's been the reports that they have some kind of agreement to come back or kind of start cheering again and be kind of so-called normal, but we can't know kind of what's the bigger plan, especially with the new stadium and so on. Like, do these owners want like even more strict kind of approach against these people who are not, maybe as you guys referred, maybe not the so-called most model citizens, so to speak. So that is maybe ticket pricing, and then the handling of the curva is my kind of a takeaways. What can go wrong with this one?
Yeah, handling of the curva is super important here. I mean,
yeah,
this is one area where I will kind of split hairs, or rather, this is one area where I'll kind of lean in the club's direction. I mean, the curva, for all their posturing about being tough guys and stuff, they really do kick up a fuss about like a €3 or €6 ticket price increase, you know what I mean, for like a season ticket or something. They're already outrageously cheap. I mean, I really wish the Curva would work more with the club and just kind of appreciate that this is something that needs to happen for to make, for the club to actually make some revenue. And at the same time, it's on the club to kind of get the Curva on their side as well. However, I'm not going to pretend like I know how those kinds of dynamics work at a really granular level in Italy when there is that kind of quote unquote unsavory element involved. Maybe that's what Inzaghi was trying to do, only to get himself a one-match ban for talking with, someone with a criminal record or something from the Curva. But you get my point. It's something that I wish both parties, the club and Curva, could be a bit more long-sighted and work together on.
All right. Well, now we're transitioning.
Let me just say, rather than working together so much, that makes it sound really kind of, I don't know, like rainbows and sunshine kind of thing. At least push together in the same direction, knowing that it's a bit shit for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, if you guys are working on some tasks together, and the job is shit, you don't have to like each other. You don't have to get along, but there's a kind of solidarity and just being like, look, we're in this shit together. I feel like there isn't much of that between the Curva and club.
Yeah, I don't know what politics go into this stuff between the two sides, so I don't have any great opinions to offer. I agree. I just like to we both everyone involved knows what we need, which is ultras who are not in jail going to Inter games and creating an atmosphere, and hopefully we get to that sooner than later because we need it. All right, we're going to briefly talk about Inter players out on loan and how they're performing so far this season. We don't have much to say here. I will start with Carboni, since he is the only player I can remember watching so far this season for Genoa, and he has not been getting a lot of minutes. He is not starting matches for them. He's made a few substitute appearances, which is unfortunate because Genoa has a financial incentive to play him. If he based on the number of appearances and minutes he plays, they're going to receive more money from us for the loan. This was something we did as a trendy, inventive way to try and get him minutes, and it's not working. Genoa play like a 3-4-3, a 3-5-2 sort of thing. So he's been playing on the right in the attack when he comes on. I watched him a bit when they got drubbed by Lazio last Monday night, and he came on and didn't do much because they just didn't see much of the ball. He had one shot into Rosie. He was involved nominally in the link-up play, but it wasn't a noteworthy performance from him, and I am concerned he's not going to get enough minutes. At first, when the preseason was happening, I wanted Carboni to stay at Inter, but now that it's clear we're playing a 3-5-2 and we have too many midfielders for the system anyway, I know Carboni at best would have been used as a fifth striker here, which I understand the loan, worthwhile endeavor to try and get him more minutes. It's not working, but it was worth a shot, and he is coming off a pretty significant injury, so there's a chance that later in the season he grows into a larger role in the squad. But overall, not thrilled with how Carboni's loan is going at Genoa. Miko, I know you want to talk about a few other guys, so maybe I'll start by asking you about young Ebenezer, who is playing for Pisa, and I saw he had a man of the match performance in the Tuscan Derby, was it? So what do you think of him so far this year?
Yeah, I remember in the summer when he was loaned to Pisa, I remember that, okay, maybe this is a bit too much for the guy. Would have been better to send him to Serie B to play more. But turns out he's, apart from the first game, he came off the bench, and the second game he didn't play at all. But the last 4 games he's played 90 minutes, all of them, and he's like contributing, and that's pretty cool, given that he's just, what he is, 20 years old, turning 21. So that has so far went way better than expected, and I like it. I like a lot. Like we have these guys who comes up and show their kind of worth immediately, and yeah, looking good. I don't know. I can't tell. Like, does he have potential to be able to play for Inter? But so far, looking pretty good given all these minutes he's getting. He's kind of there kind of their main guys not getting subbed off and so on, even though the results haven't been great. But in this MVP performance, at least they could a draw against Fiorentina, as you said. But yeah, let's see how it goes with him. I want to quickly comment on Carboni. I watched few Genoa's games this season, and he started the first 2 of them. Then he went to the bench and hasn't started since. He's played in every match, but only from the bench. And like you said, against Lazio, for example, he was subbed on after Lazio was winning 3-0 already. So it was a bit of game over, and it's not easy to come in and like try to do something at that point when the teammates are like kind of okay, whatever. But in few of those other matches, when I've seen him play, I'm not that convinced yet that he. I mean that he has a lot of work to do to be kind of worthy of Inter if we wanna think that we should be able to use him. He's just, to my liking, he's just too soft at the moment. He's not involved enough, and he's pushed around too easily, getting knocked off the ball. Although he made a nice little move in that match against Como when they got the equalizer right at the end. He wasn't like the primary assist man, but I think it was the secondary assist. But did a nice move there, but in general, like you said, there's a lot of work to be done for him, so that we could see him being useful for us at this point. As you said, there's a long injury. He hasn't played for a long time, so might take a bit of time because before he can get in proper rhythm. But yeah, good to have him on loan. Not sure if Genoa is the right place. At least Vieira was, or like early season, he was talking about Carboni, like okay, he needs to learn this and that and whatever. So he kind of has his mind in these players, but I don't know. Genoa's record looks so awful that Vieira is probably out in a few weeks if they can't get any wins. Really
that
fast.
Inter managerial candidate runner-up to Kivu Vieira you're talking about?
Unfortunately, yes, but luckily we got the right guy and not this one. Yeah, but Carboni doesn't look good at the moment, but let's give him time. Hopefully in the springtime he looks a lot better. Let's see next summer where we at with him. There's one guy I wanna discuss as well.
Aslani?
No. We're gonna skip. We're gonna skip Aslani now. He's on loan, but let's not do that. I want to discuss about Alexander Stankovic. I remember, I don't know, did we discuss much about this sale this summer? But I was pretty livid with the deal we made with Club Brugge. But by selling him for 10 million or something, and then adding a buyback clause for 23 millions next summer, 25 millions in 2027 summer. And I felt we got a bit of ripped off there with that kind of a sale structure. But I'm not that angry with the deal anymore. I've watched few of those Bruges Champions League matches, and Stankovic has been the starter for them in both of those, and he has played 90 minutes. And now checking the stats from the Jupiler Pro League, the Belgium league. He has been their starter for like almost 10 matches now. 8 matches he's been their starter, mostly playing 90 minutes. And he is really, really good. He's only 20, just turned 20. And at that age, to be able to kind of steal a starting spot, that's not happening here too often. And I'm really excited to see how far he's gonna get this season already. Like I said, I watched their Champions League matches, and he's very composed. He's not like Çalhanoğlu, where he's like all over the place and very active. Stankovic is more kind of reserved, but always well positioned, and like not something you would expect from such a young guy. So he's kind of learned his trade really well in Italy, kind of the tactical aspects, how to position, be always available, not in a hurry ever. And I'm very excited to see how much he's going to grow this season, because I've started to feel that maybe we should kind of park him there for two years and then buy him back for 25 millions when he's played Champions League. He has like a lot of experience by that time, and of course everything depends on like what the team needs. But I do hope that our management has this kind of a path forward for him, like figured out already, like when we want to call him back or buy him back, and not make too many kind of rushed decisions in the transfer market when we have this guy with, at that point, pretty kind of a decent price there available, with such an experience. Given we bought like Bunny, we bought Luis Enrique, we bought Sušić. Okay, Sušić was a bit cheaper, but Diouf, we bought these guys for 20 to 25 million, and then we have this Stankovic available for that money, with all that experience and still being so young. So I'm very looking forward, like when we can bring him back, like what we can expect from him at that point when we get him back. I'm really happy it went this way, even though it sounded a bit shitty deal in the summer, but not so much anymore.
This is very wishful thinking. This is just typical European elitism. I mean, we had a young, promising, composed, experienced midfielder, and Inter fans just ripped him apart and didn't give him much of a chance. Maybe this nepo baby Stankovic will get some better benefit of the doubt from Inter fans. But frankly, I don't think we deserve young, experienced, promising 20-year-old midfielders, because our track record with them is pretty piss poor. As we just mentioned and glossed over one of our most accomplished loanees, Christian Aslani, who is just reveling at Torino. We're not even going to talk about him. So that tells you all you need to know about Inter fans' patience with young midfielders. So I'm not even going to go there. It sound like a broken record, but I'm glad you devoted so much of your effort and time to this nepo baby, Miko, because maybe we'll spend $20 million on this guy and bring him back to the club so he can sit on some bench. And then the second he misplaces a pass, everyone will turn on him and make him a scapegoat for the failings of the club for 2 to 3 years.
The nepo baby reference is what gets me. I'll give credit to Aslani. Apparently, he played well yesterday in Albania's win over Serbia. So credit to him.
There you go.
All I'll say to wrap up this section is that there's a lot of people who are excited about Stankovic. Apparently, he's playing well for Bruges. We need to sort out this midfield situation. We're going to have to sell one or two midfielders this summer if we want to have room for Stankovic. If we, Asllani's going to be back here because Torino's not going to exercise their option. So we're going to have some work to do in the midfield next summer. Diouf, Fertesi, sorting through these pieces, and if you want Stankovic to stay, you're going to have to resolve that first.
What do you mean then not going to use the option if he's shining there?
I didn't say he was shining there. I said he was shining for Albania against Serbia yesterday.
He'll be back. I don't think he's playing particularly well. In all fairness, I think he'll be back.
Yeah. To be clear, Torino's not redeeming Asllani. That's all I'm saying.
Can I just say, this is the kind of thing that gets me pissed off about, or tangentially pissed off about things like Diouf and that idiot Palacios who played last night in a didn't he play or start against Atletico Madrid in that friendly?
Yeah, he started and he did
started,
not.
Yeah.
What did you say?
He did not look good, but he started.
He did not look good. I was surprised, but it's not impossible that someone like Diouf blocks us from doing what we want to with Stankovic. And I know it's like a roundabout way, and it's a kind of thing that you're like, that highly negative, sad people with nothing going on in their lives like to critique the club about. But I tell you what, man, what Miko was saying, or what you guys have all been saying about Stankovic is right. He's looked good in the Champions League. And I hear nothing but great praise for him, and he sounds like a great midfield alternative for Hakan. Just some anchor, sit deep, soak up pressure, win balls, be physical in midfield. He sounds like exactly what we need, a bruiser in midfield, right? A defensive linchpin. And at the same time, as much as we need a player like that, I'd be really happy to leave him at Bruges for another year so that he can develop even further. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the player playing at a Bruges level before coming to Inter. I don't think the step up is too high, especially if he's playing Champions League regularly. But again, someone like Diouf might actually fucking block us from doing that because, again, assuming that he's not going to suddenly displace one of Mkhitaryan, Barella, or Çalhanoğlu and become some new Pio Esposito, his trajectory is already set. He's going to rot on the bench, and we're not going to be able to move this guy for next season. If we do, it'll be like a loan, but because the finances won't be favorable to us, we're not going to be able to have much movement in terms of or room to maneuver, rather, in terms of like what we can do with the money. No one's going to want to pay anything close to 25 million for Andy Diouf. No one's going to want to pay his salary as well when we try to loan him out. And that, again, that might screw us over to do what we want with Stankovic. And again, I know they're not inherently related, but it's when I see talented players like Stankovic, for example, or I don't know, even Ebenezer Akinsanmiro, for example. I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, if only we had room for these guys here, but there are other wasters here, like blocking these moves, and that always annoys me a little bit.
What you're really talking about is Agume. Just say it. Just say his name. Give him
better than Asllani.
Just give him the hill that you were gonna infamously die on Lucien.
That's right.
Young Agume, who was attracting attention from the likes of historical club Manchester United. We all know
that's right.
That's right. Agume is linked to 25, 30, 40 million moves to the EPL, whereas Asllani can't be redeemed by Torino.
It's all politics.
Can I just say, like, on the topic of Asllani, everyone knows this already, but that guy's a fucking idiot. Like, why would you turn down Bologna, given the trajectory they've been on, to go to fucking Torino? Like, not only is it's just like a lose situation. It's worse for him as an individual player trying to develop as a professional. It's worse for us in the finances. It's just worse for everyone. It's just like the guy is just like we have a term for it. I don't know how to kind of how to kind of translate it in English, but we say it like just no help to anybody, or it's just of no use to no one. It's like they go out of their way to pick the single most unhelpful option that you didn't even think was an option. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I try
honestly,
to give these players. I try and give these players the benefit of the doubt. It's like Siba Esposito, when he was like considering his options this summer, I was like, why does this dude want to go to Kyrie instead of Parma? Because both were interested in him, and Parma to me felt like the way better project. But now he's at Kyrie, starting matches. He's not scoring goals, but like he's getting the minutes he wanted. So like, there's probably something we're not thinking of that led Asllani to make this decision. Who knows, man? It could be as simple as he didn't want to move far away from his
Torino
place in Milan.
16th. Torino 16th. Bologna 7th.
Yeah,
I think
Bologna have been in European competition. They won the. I mean, they were in the fucking Champions League like a year ago, weren't they? They
yeah.
what did they finish last season?
They're in the Conference League this year, right?
No, they finished 9th last season.
Did they finish 9th? Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
not anything. But
Look,
yeah, so they've been in the Champions League recently. They've been in Europe recently.
They're going to be in the Supercoppa.
Exactly, they won the Coppa Italia. Obviously,
Yeah.
this Bologna project it's kind of like a mini, this it's Italiano. Bologna project is like a kind of mini Gasparini's Atalanta in a way, getting plaudits all around for some well-deserved plaudits for some great football and great results, punching far above their weight, easily beating shit clubs like Inter. But so why, if you're a young player like Asllani, why would you not go there? You know what I mean?
If you were a young player like Asllani,
instead you got a
why would you
fucking
play in Italy?
provincial. True, yeah. Instead, you got a provincial Torino to play under fucking Baroni, and and finish 16th. It's so stupid, man. It's just brainless.
It makes no sense. Even as one of his biggest supporters, it didn't really make a lot of sense to me that he would go to Torino instead of Bologna. But who the hell knows?
But
all right, let's not waste more time talking about Asllani.
One comment. I read that Italiano wouldn't have picked Asllani to be in his Europe squad, which means that he probably wouldn't have trusted him anyway that much. But in Torino, he started every match he's been in the squad. I think there's our answer why he picked Torino.
Like,
wait, what do you mean Europe
because
squad?
Bologna are not in Europe anyway.
Did they get an automatic spot because they won the Coppa? Is that what happened?
Maybe.
Yeah, right.
All right, they're in the Europa League. So you know what, Jay? I refuse to accept your slander.
There you go.
All right. Jay mentioned Gasparini. Let's use this as a transition point to playing Gasparini in his new stomping ground of Roma, first game back from the international break. I guess a few thoughts on this match. One is we don't know if Thuram's going to play or not, and that's going to be a huge factor in my ultimate picking of this game. We have Lautaro returning from international break. You always know he looks awful post-international break. Maybe you put Pio and Bonnie together up front if Lautaro's tired. I was reading something. Miko can summarize this when we get to him about Lautaro coming back later than usual from international break. So that's something to watch. The overall game against Roma is going to be an interesting one. Roma statistically are at the top of the Serie A table. Everything looks great. They've had a good run of results. I'm telling you, if you watch this team, they are not that good. But they are not impressive. So Gasparini's running his usual 3-4-3 system. This is a system Inzaghi dominated every time we played them. I'm hoping Kivu can have similar success with our advantage in the midfield. But I watched the duration of Roma's game against Verona, and I'm telling you, Verona dominated them. Verona had all the scoring chances in the world. Roma barely had any. Gift Orban just could not finish. He had a wide open net. He put the ball over the crossbar. Like that should have easily been a Verona win. Gasperini walked away with a win instead. So I'm not scared by this Roma team, and I think we're well positioned to beat them. The one guy on their team who has played fantastic this season is their goalkeeper, whose name I can't even pronounce. Is it Spiller? Something like that. He is a really good keeper. He might be the best keeper in Serie A right now. But Kone has not looked good this season. Not a single one of Roma's attackers have impressed me this season. And this is a game, I understand it's difficult on paper after an international break against a tough side who's performing well in the league this year. I 100% expect us to win this game because I do not think Roma's results so far this season reflect how they're actually playing. Miko, or actually, let me go to Irfan first because Irfan will get it cut out soon.
Yeah, I'll just say, I think this will be a tough match, but for all the reasons that you mentioned, I think we own Gasperini. I think we're going to win. I'm going 2-1. I think Hakan scores on a penalty. I think Dumfries scores our other goal. I think it'll be a good match, but I think we'll be in control, and I expect to win.
All right, Miko, I know we're running a little long here, but you were the one, I think, sharing the information about Lautaro post-international break. What's going on there?
Yeah, I think that the match Puerto Rico versus Argentina was postponed to a later date or the next date, which is, I guess, is it like in European time zone? Is it like a Tuesday, Wednesday more night or something, which kind of sucks given we play on Saturday. So it pushes Lautaro's return one day further. And we know, like you said, he usually doesn't look good after coming from these these trips from America. So let's see. I actually expect him not to start, or partly hope he doesn't start, because we don't want to run him to the ground from the start like we did last season. Apart from that, yeah, I haven't too much Roma this season, and can't comment how they actually play. But given what you said, and well, I watched a bit of the Roma Lazio match, and yeah, that was a bit of dull match anyway. I'm quite optimistic, but at the same time, these matches after the national team breaks have been a bit of a struggle for us. So I don't know, a bit of hard time predicting what will come out of this one. But maybe we will start some of our kind of guys who stayed in Italy, haven't traveled anywhere. I don't know. It's a bit hard to predict what Kivu will do, because Inzaghi would have he would have definitely started all normal guys, no matter who has been wherever they have been. But with Kivu, we haven't seen these occasions that much yet, so we don't have the evidence. But yeah, I'm always kind of optimistic, but there's a bit of caution, because those matches are usually not that good for us. I mean the matches at Stadio Olimpico. But let's see. Like you said, having and not having Thuram there is a big one, since he's being the kind of the driving force in our attack in this early season, like every match he's been playing. But yeah, what about you, Jay? What thoughts of this match?
I agree with Andrew that this Gasperini Roma is still a work in progress, still flatters to deceive the eye. I think we should take this. I think we've been pretty strong against Roma recently, and obviously pretty strong against Gasperini in recent years, although let's be real, a lot of that was probably Inzaghi. But I do expect to win. I really do think that this is a good test for us, because maybe the Juventus game came too soon in the Kivu cycle, in this new era of Kivu. Obviously, it's a test that we failed, and as you mentioned last week, following the double disappointment against Udinese and Juventus, we managed to bounce back and righting the ship with a series of consecutive wins. I believe 5 consecutive wins, including the league and Champions League, all while looking fairly good. And now we come up to another mini test, which is Roma. And this will show us whether we've managed to ramp up our game, our mentality, and whether we're on the right path, or whether, or losing here would just be like a massive indicator that this club is just full of shit. To be honest, like you can't just go and lose to Juventus and then bounce back by steamrolling all these shitters and then bitching out again the moment you run into like a mildly like quasi pseudo big team in Roma. Like you can't do that shit. So if we lose here, like I said, it would be extremely telling that these guys are just frauds. So I hope that doesn't happen. So I hope we win, and I'm expecting us to do so. So I'll go 1-0 prediction, goal from Fratesi. And yeah.
All right. Miko, I don't think you offered a prediction. What's your prediction?
Let's go with 2-1 Inter. Pio will get a goal, the winner. Dumfries will get 1 goal, and then Sula scores for Roma.
I will go 2-0 Inter. Pio, fresh off his debut Italy goal, will go ahead and get a league goal for us. And let's give it to both strikers. Give Bonnie a goal as well. So the strikers get the job done. I cannot emphasize enough how much we need to win this match, because, like Jay said, the Juve thing, we always struggle with Juve. It was at a bad timing, and it was so early in the season. Like summer played awful. Like we can make excuses to rationalize away the Juve performance, but this is Kivu steadied the ship. He won the next 5 matches against teams we were supposed to beat. So now go and beat a good Roma side. I've talked about how I think they're fraudulent, but it's still a good Roma side. Go to their place, beat them, and prove that this wasn't a fluke, that we're not just beating up on the soft teams. Prove that we're actually a Scudetto contender. If you go and you beat Roma at the Olimpico, you are establishing yourself as a Scudetto contender, and that this thing's for real, and we have a chance this season. If you go and you drop points here, we're fighting for top 4. I think it's as straightforward as that. If you drop points to Gasparini for the first time in like 6 years, you are not a serious Scudetto contender. So we'll see how this all shakes out. I'm just excited to have Inter matches back. Jay, do you have a hot betting tip for us?
I do, actually, and it's the Italy game against Israel, I believe.
Oh boy.
In 2 days. And I'm going another ludicrous game, like the one that took place about a month ago when Italy won, was it 5-4 away in Israel?
Yeah.
This time I'm predicting a 4-2 win for Italy. I think once again Italy will make it really difficult for themselves. I think they'll be winning 2-2. Then Israel will tie it up at 2-2. Italy will be winning 2-0, only for Israel to tie it up 2-2, and then Italy will then come back and score 2 late goals to win the game 4-2. But it's going to be another just balls to the wall, crazed game of ridiculous football, as a lot of these Gattuso games seem to be for some reason.
I did not watch the game yesterday. I did see the highlight of Pio's goal. Did Moise Kean leave injured, Miko? Is that why Pio came on so early?
Yeah.
So if Pio gets his first start, that will be must-see appointment television.
Yeah, our boy Bastoni, he took a nice booking, and he's gonna miss this Israel match now.
Smart man.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's wrap there. We'll be back next week to break down whatever happens in the Roma match. We'll catch you all then. Miko, do the job.
Forza Inter.
And Forza Ebenezer.